Good evening, everybody. Welcome to book club tonight on this Thursday evening. We are going over chapter 7 and 8 of Get Over Yourself. Chapter 7. It's so good because, objections, right? This is something we get in this business on the daily, don't we, people? I know that we have all experienced objections. And so I just love what she has to say in this chapter. I love that second sentence. It says, don't fear objections, embrace them. And she kind of just goes through how to do that. And it's really important to remember to not get defensive, when that objection happens, to not take it personally, to make sure you're remembering that you're not tied to that objection. You're not tied to that no. Even though it's really, really hard not to be, right? I remember having to definitely go through that growth process of not getting like that knot in my stomach or feeling like just so defeated when someone would give me an objection and say no. So that comes with practice and experience and growth too. And so also she mentioned about not going into convincing mode, because this, we don't want to have to convince someone, right? We want them to do it because they are ready, they're committed. And so she talks about that as well. Then she really just goes into the actual objections, and Amanda and I should introduce Amanda. She is leading with me tonight for the first time.
Hey everybody.
Yay. She's a senior Ruby, and
I wish senior
gold.
Senior
gold. I'm sorry. Senior Ruby's coming. See, I just know you're gonna do it fast.
That's a positive affirmation. Thank you.
Yes, there you go. Yes, she's senior gold and just has just really blossomed here. And so she's gonna help me tonight. And so she goes, Rami goes through the objections, and I have heard every single one. How about you guys? Every single one I have gotten over the 6.5 years I've been doing this. And maybe even you've been doing this for 2 to 3 months or a little longer, and you've probably heard most of these objections, right? So we're just going to go through them. And Amanda and I want to hear from you guys tonight. Okay, so get those cameras on. Don't be afraid to unmute yourself and share little tidbits with us about what you thought about this chapter. Okay. Amanda, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
I just real briefly that we, like when Sue and I were talking earlier today, to me, just because even though I've been with Plexus 6+ years, I didn't really start sharing until like a year and a half ago. And this tool, this chapter, like I haven't read this book before, and it just took away so many of those feelings that I feel like come up for me, at least, just that feeling of overwhelmed or feeling intimidated by people's objections. And I was like, even if I have to like get copy and paste straight out of here and just insert a few of my own words, just having verbiage and having, a way to dialogue about some of the objections feels like, okay, there's hope to like respond to some of my people in the inbox that have objections that are sitting there waiting for me to just converse about. And so yeah, I'm actually kind of excited to have this and to try to put it into practice.
Mm-hmm. Yes, same. Good stuff. And this is my third or fourth, Jamie, or third, I think, reading this book, doing this book. and I get something different. Little nuggets every single time. So it is good to pick this book up, you guys, more than just once. Definitely a couple times a year. Read it alongside our book club, book or something. But okay, who wants to share?
I do. It's Anna.
Oh, right.
Hey, Anna.
You can't see me because I'm driving, but one of the things that I did that was kind of like what Amanda said is I actually took down all her verbiage for those objections, and I'm going to read them before every call I have with somebody. So it's kind of like I start reading them as affirmations kind of thing, so I can remember what questions to ask, because that's where I've always kind of stumbled, is the clarifying questions, So I'm going to start just using that as a reminder that I can ask questions and how to kind of rebuttal, but not use her verbatim, words verbatim, make up my own, but kind of builds your confidence on those objections. So I was just kind of agreeing with Amanda to print them out and look at them.
Mm-hmm. That's a smart idea, to just like quick reread them before you talk to somebody, so that those words are fresh in your head. Not that they're comebacks at all, like Sue said, to not be ready to play defense, but just to be able to
I think when you kind of get nervous, or you kind of draw a blank, it's nice to have something to kind of go, oh yeah, I read that somewhere, so why can't I ask this question? So it kind of just I think it really kind of mellowed my nerves a little bit when I go into my calls.
Awesome.
What I love about this chapter is, one, it normalizes the fact that there are objections. I think at the very beginning of this, especially, it can be very, it can be something that objections can be naturally something we want to avoid, right? You want to avoid anything that seems negative or seems like someone's going against what you're saying, and you're hoping for a good outcome. You're hoping for, yes, tell me more. And yes, this sounds great. I want to get started. So if there's something that seems against that, then our natural tendency is to kind of maybe pull back, or maybe feel like, okay, they're not interested, or, oh, okay, here's another one. Now I got to find somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
So it normalizes the fact that objections happen, that is going to happen in our business. So if we can go in, it all comes back to our mindset, right? So if we can go into conversations expecting there to be objections, expecting there to be questions or things that probably don't add up or whatever for this other person that we're talking to, then we can go in with the thought process of that this is just another step in the process. This is normal.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, if we know more, then we can help them more. So it's a good thing if we know what's going on in someone's head, instead of them just circling around and either ignoring or saying no and we don't really know why. If we can know what's going on in people's heads, then we can help give more information for them to make a more educated decision for themselves. So if we look at it as a tool, something that's going to help us grow our business, help us get more people started, that's what's empowering and exciting, versus the natural tendency to not want objections and to run away from them, or to have negative thoughts about them. If we can change that around, then this is exactly what we need to have these objections and to be able to help go through them to grow our businesses.
I just wanted to add in there, in addition to what Anna was saying, that some of the objections, I'm putting them in the notes in my phone, because if you're in a three-way chat, I know we feel like we need to respond to them right away. And I mean, you really don't have to. You can take the time to really digest what they're trying to ask you or object to. And then you have them right there with you all the time, so that you can reference back and give them a clearer message back to them, instead of just jumping right in and just floundering through an answer to them.
Mm-hmm. Agree. Yeah. Amanda and I actually talked about that, about just copying, pasting into our notes in our phones. We had them quick reference, you know. But yeah, it's Jamie, I liked what you were saying about how it is absolutely a mindset thing. And I have, like I said, I've grown through that, you know, sometimes painfully over the last 6 years. But Candace wrote a little ways back here in the chat to remember to go into the objection with excitement. And I love that she wrote that, because, and I'm going to couple that with confidence. Go into that objection with confidence and with excitement. And that is totally something that we need to work on with our mindset, because typically that's not really an exciting thing, right? Objections aren't, and we can dread them, but we shouldn't, because it opens up conversation, right? And it helps you get to know that person better and just dig deep in why they're you know, sharing this objection with you. I love the feel, felt, found. She mentions that on 106. And that is something that I use very often, and that we learned, Jamie and I learned very early on in our Plexus journey, and how to just troubleshoot and help our prospects. So anybody else have anything to add?
Right above that, I like where she said, she was talking about responding with a question, a clarifying question, because a lot of times people don't even know what they're objecting to. They just, like, their first reaction is to say no, or to not sound real positive about it. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and it gave me some insight too. Like, a lot of times they might not even know why they're saying no. They just do. So trying to help them even sort through the no for their own purpose is good, and probably will, I mean, it shows an interest as well.
Yeah,
I had the same thing highlighted, responding with a question. I think you can use that. I've been trying to implement that more just in daily life too, like just talking with anybody. I found it just really good for communication with a lot of people, like just like slow down, like let people finish their entire thought, because usually they'll keep talking and more is just going to keep coming out. And it gets easier to respond. So I found that, yeah, just in, not even just with my business, but with my business as well. And also with coaching too. But even just in normal conversations, I thought it was helpful. So.
I love that she keeps pointing us back to the fact that we don't need to be emotionally invested in the outcome of this conversation. I think it really gives you kind of your power back as to, you know, you're not desperate for the end of this. You're just as much trying to find out if this person is going to be a good fit for this business as they are trying to, you know, find out if this is something good for them as well. It's not something that's like you're trying to convince them to do with you. You're not going to want them if they're not really a good fit for this, if they don't really have what it takes to do this business, and they don't love to talk to people. They don't have those qualities that we're looking for. I don't know if this is helpful for anybody else. I know for me, I'm talking to a lot of people that I don't know very well anymore. You know, like now I'm in a place where it's really cold market. And so I don't know these people. So it really is a conversation that is clarifying, you know, like, would this be a good fit for you? There's some qualities I see on your Facebook page that make you look like someone that I think could be really good at this. I don't know. Do you even have an interest in looking at it? You know? And so I don't know. I really love that she just keeps reiterating that we are not emotionally invested in the outcome of this. We are just as much just trying to see, is this going to be a good fit or not? You know, and I just feel like that has been kind of a game changer for me, because it really changes your posture when you come into a conversation with that. Like, I have confidence that this is a great business model, that this is a great thing for people that are ready and willing to run with it. But I don't know that that's you yet. You know, kind of makes it feel like, you know, I'm kind of interviewing you. And so I really love the clarifying questions, because I think that's helpful to, you know, flip it back to a question like, I want to know more about this. I'm not trying to convince you of this. I want to know, are you a good fit? Would this make sense for your life? Would we be good partners? Would we be good business builders together? So yeah, that's just been my biggest takeaway so far from this book in general. And she keeps pointing us back right to it in every chapter. So
Yes, I love that, Kristen. Thank you for sharing that. And I like that you said, you mentioned coming in with confidence, and that made me think about page 111 and how we ourselves need to make sure we have sufficiently answered our own objections, right? Because that's most likely what you're going to get asked about, is what you're most unsure of. And so it's super important for us as business builders and leaders to not have, just to work on whatever objections you think may be holding you back, right? Whether that be belief in network marketing or this business model, or whatever that be, that you don't have time. That's a very, very common one. So I like that she added that at the end. We need to check ourselves.
I just keep thinking that this kind of goes with what Kristen said, but the objections and the clarifying questions are what put you in the driver's seat. And we're in charge of the conversation. And just like when somebody comes to us and they're like, hey, I want to order the MetaBurn, like we are supposed to educate them, like, okay, let me tell you what this is really like this is what's going to get you best results. It's like we are in the driver's seat to make sure that they're getting the best results for their health products. But in the same way, it's like we need to make sure that we're in the driver's seat, because if they're thinking that they need just the MetaBurn, it's because they think that that's just going to help their weight loss. Like if they think a certain thing about the business and have like those preconceived ideas, we're going to come in and educate, just like what we did with the triplex. Like we're the ones that are in the driver's seat. And if we're willing to stop and ask those clarifying questions, that's what puts us back in the driver's seat. So that's just kind of something I've been thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to think about inviting those instead of trying with everything in us to avoid them.
Yeah.
Just to be confident in them and how to work through them. Yes, Leah, to put you back in the driver's seat. And that confidence only passes on to the person that you're talking to, like that boldness, confidence, even if you're like scared on the inside, but just confident on the outside, it'll pass on to them and believe it more.
For sure. Yeah.
And I like that thought of just, it's as much kind of us interviewing the person that we're talking to see if it's a good fit, because it also, I feel like, adds value to what we're doing and makes them feel like, hey, I know what I have to offer. And if you, not to say it like really bluntly, but if you walk away, it's your loss kind of thing. And I think it draws people a little bit more to like, hey, it must be good if she's like, yep, I know what it is. I know that it works. I know that it's worth it. When you're ready, I'm here. So.
I love that.
I like her. I'm not looking for salespeople. I'm looking for passionate people that share about things they love.
Anybody else thoughts on chapter 7? Okay. Amanda, you ready to move on to chapter 8, or did you have anything else on 7?
No, I was just trying to like figure out when you and I were talking about this, where we were kind of fitting in. I was talking to Sue about how we have like my like women's studies or different groups at church and stuff that we've been part of talk about our core lie. And I don't know if that like rings a bell or resonates with anyone. And there's probably different ways of saying it. When we talk about positive affirmations sometimes, but so much of how we like are able to converse with people and how we internalize objections towards us can oftentimes be tied to a core lie that we believe about ourselves. Like if we have this thing that we've grown up with, either because of something we've experienced or something that we've been told, something that's happened to us where we feel like we're unlovable or we're unworthy or we can't finish anything or we can't, I don't know, there's just so many things. But when a lot of times when we think about it, there's one or two negative things that we kind of fight with ourselves to like not let that take hold and take its place. And whether that's like having a positive affirmation to kind of combat that lie, or having a truth that we know God tells us about ourselves and maybe a verse to go with that instead. I know everybody's kind of in different walks of life, but everything that we hear from people, we filter through that lie that we might believe about ourselves. And so it's important to identify what that is so that we can put it in its rightful place and then not filter objections that come to us or interactions that we have with people through that, because it definitely affects how we're able to effectively communicate with others, or how quickly we just shut down with something because it kind of taps into that lie that we believe that's an untruth about ourselves. But figuring out what it is, identifying it, and having something to come back, against that and live in truth instead of living in that lie about us will help us in a lot of our engaging with other people. So something maybe to think about this week. And sometimes it takes digging way back in our parenting, in our relationships, marriages, work people, strangers alike. It's something to think about. But
Sure. Yes. Thank
any
you.
thoughts on that before we move into 8? If it's familiar to anyone or something similar to that.
Mhm.
All right, so moving into 8, this first little section is about when we get people stuck in our funnel. One of my girls and I were just talking about that this week. Like, at what point do you have to be okay with letting someone just pass on through? Like, how much time do you keep giving to someone, knowing that we've also been told it can sometimes take up to 12 connections with someone before they actually come around and join you? So yeah, any thoughts on this broader idea of funnel? How do you decide when it's time to let someone out of that? Yes, how do you decide when it's time? What are your cues? What are your processes? Anybody have thoughts on this kind of first section about funnel? Anything at all to do with that?
I think it's important. Oh, go ahead.
Oops.
Sorry, James. I am sorry, I'm in the dark. I'm laying with a sick child. So anyways, I loved the part where, well, first of all, she talked about not having the attachment. If you're messaging enough people, you're not going to be attached to that one person, right? So if you're messaging, 10 people a day, it's a little bit easier to deal with versus messaging 3 people and having one person say no. So I think that's a big thing. And then the other thing, what else was I going to say? Asking enough questions. I think that's it's kind of like piggybacking off the last chapter, but asking enough questions. Usually if someone's stuck, it's because you haven't answered their question yet, or you haven't asked enough questions yet. So I think that was one of my biggest takeaways from this. Sorry, James.
You're good. I was just gonna quick say, I think it's important when she mentions it's again, it goes back to our mindset, I guess, But when people get quiet, when they don't answer, not making assumptions or prejudging, and she basically points out until she gets a no, she's gonna keep circling back around and continuing on with giving them information, because so many times we prejudge and we think that they're not interested because they didn't respond right away or whatever, and obviously they could have just gotten busy, or a lot of times they maybe they're not 100% ready, but they don't want to tell you no yet, or they don't want to like disappoint you, or who knows what's going on in their mindset. So just not prejudging any of that and being able to circle back around. And if someone is a no, it's just not a no for right now. And, down the road, they might have more information and life might change and it might be different. And I think the biggest hang up that I often see for some people is not asking the question to help them even get started. Not helping them make that decision, or just being asked if they're ready to get going. You circle back around with questions too much, or you hang out and just kind of sit in this. Your funnel gets constipated, and you just don't simply ask like, okay, are you ready to get started? And simply move things forward yourself. Goes back to what Leah said about being in the driver's seat. So being able to be forward and confident in moving that conversation forward so that people can get through, and then not being afraid to ask the questions and being afraid of them completely backing out. And yeah, maybe they're not ready, but sometimes we pull back and don't want to ask the questions because we're afraid of getting that kind of response. So not shying away from those kind of things.
I liked your line, let go of the fear of losing what you don't have. It's like, yep. And like Jamie said, kind of getting to why they can't make a decision at the moment or won't make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
I liked how she is kind of like really blunt in getting to that point towards the end. Like basically all of the end paragraphs of all of her questions are kind of circling back to, okay, are you ready yet? And I really liked the verbiage of, like Jamie just said, the breakdown of, okay, here's my follow-up. And then, okay, still you got crickets. Okay, here's what next. And then at the end, she's just like, I'm really good at following up, so I'm going to keep going until I get a no. Like I really liked how she was saying that in a nice way, but yet, okay, I'm going to keep coming at you until I get a final no. So where are you at with this kind of thing? I really liked that. And it's kind of consistent with all of the other questions that everybody brings up to you.
Mm-hmm. I liked that. And it seemed like she was giving them freedom. Like, I'm giving you the freedom to say no, and like nothing's going to be affected by that. Like I don't have any personal tie to this answer. Because at the end of the day, I think we all, yes, would put the relationship before making a sale, and making sure that that comes across to our friends that we're talking with. Of course, we would love it, but at the end of the day, like, saving those relationships and not putting any stress on them for a person needing to say no in that moment. And it might not be that forever, but any other, what time do we have? Is it already like, oh, it's 10:01. Time goes so fast.
I know, it always goes so fast.
That next section was just on three-way calls, and we were talking about that, how they're so critical, and we, at least in our group, seem to utilize them frequently, like a lot, after someone has joined. But our dialogue, at least, was not like, we haven't really been doing them at all before someone has joined. Does anyone have any experience with that, or have you used that with your upline to ever? Yes, Leah, you're nodding yes. Yes, you have, or yes, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Or...
You caught me. Yeah.
Not enough.
Yeah, it's third party validation. And when you've got Jamie as your upline, of course you get him on the phone with her. She's good at asking those clarifying questions, you know? And I think so, like Rachel, who just talked, never gave me the time of day about the business, never expressed any interest. I know you're probably okay with me saying this, Rachel. And then I get her on the phone with Jamie, and Jamie's like, so like, what do you think? And Rachel's like, I'm ready to be a diamond. And I'm like, we never even talked about this. Like, and she's, you know, totally all in and doing really, really well. But I kind of wonder, like, how long would have it taken to get that out? I think it's just another layer of being able to clarify things and really solidify things and get them talking. And I think even just, I mean, closing business builders, I think I've done a lot better just getting them on the phone, even with just me. You know, there's something really powerful about that back and forth conversation. So yeah, I definitely recommend three-way calls, especially for any, like for business people, for sure.
Yeah.
I always liked them too because I felt like they were more personal. Like you can't read the tone of the message in a message or a text. And I've always been such a like on the phone conversation person. Like if I have something to say to you, I'm going to pick up the phone and call you. And I always just felt like it was way easier to read the tone of the conversation, like where it was going, how they were kind of feeling. You can, you know, you can hear it in their voice. And then having that, like Leah said, that back and forth conversation, like in real time, you know, made such a huge difference because, I mean, can't be the only one with a busy life. So sometimes it takes, you know, 5 seconds to answer back. Sometimes it takes 2 hours. And, you know, we already, it's just that real time, you know, people want those answers right now, and hearing the tone and hearing all of that makes such a huge difference.
It's good. Right towards the end, she just, you know, if someone actually finally has to say no, and her just talking about we can't make someone believe in themselves, but we can assure them that we'd be honored and thrilled if we are somehow part of them learning how capable they are, and just, you know, ending on a positive and validating and kind of still just like leaving that door open if their no could someday turn into a yes, but adding with something positive at the end. Do we need to get off here, Sue, or are we past our, like, what are our limitations?
Oh, we're good. Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna tell anybody they can't talk, so if anybody else has anything to add, we'd love to hear from you. Good thoughts tonight.
I liked when she asked them to do their homework, and
Mhm.
the third thing was, I want you to think about your why, and if you don't pursue this business, how else will you get to where you want to be? Like, make them actually put it on paper. Like, if this isn't it, like, what's your plan going to be? Because it does, you know, cause them to pause and think, like, all right, how else would I be able to make this?
Exactly. And most people aren't even gonna know, right? They probably don't have a plan B.
To piggyback off of that, goes along with the dream teamers. So you can pretty much take her list of dream teamers and reach out to them. I didn't even think about that aspect of it.
Yes.
But if they're already writing down their dream teamers, then you kind of have another new list to start with, if she'll give it, or he'll give it to you.
Yeah. No, I like that too, Jill. Referrals. I mean, gosh, why not?
It's definitely another way to boost your network, you know, and grow with, you know, so yeah, I definitely like the referral side of things. Might actually get them to change their mind, saying, you know, well, you've got all these people, if you don't want to do it, do you mind if I do it? You know what I mean? Like, it's either you can refer them to me or you can do your own business, you know, so it's kind of a not a catch-22, but it's another way to kind of open their eyes to the opportunity. I mean, they have a list in the beginning.
Yeah, even if you have to do a lot of hand holding right at the beginning with them to just like, hey, just help me make the connection and I'll help you get this for these first few sales. So at least they see like some bonuses coming their way and like it's not that hard.
Yeah, for sure. Page 122, almost towards the end. Don't be afraid of the no's, because the no's will get you closer to the yeses. And yeah, it's just, that's the truth, right?
Yeah.
Go for no.
Anybody else thoughts on even like chapter 7, things that came back to you as we were sitting here in chapter 8? Or if it's applicable to anything we talked about.
Yes, please.
I like this last part. Sorry, Sue.
You're good.
Just where she says, love the process. I know so many times we get our sights set on our goals and our next goal and, you know, where we want to go. And I was talking with Janelle after her, you know, her Emerald call a week or two ago. And she was just like, be grateful for where you're at. There are always people that, you know, would love to be where you're at. So being grateful and loving the process. And I just feel like this book and these chapters just give you so many tools to love the process because you're so well equipped, just like our team, our guide section, like all of those things. We're just so well equipped to do this business. You know, we have, you know, the questions we can ask, we have the resources to go to. I just love reading through this book again because I'm like, oh my gosh, these are so many good things. I just want it written all out so I can put it in my notes so I can change wording and have it ready to go. But yeah, so that just stuck out to me just there at the end is just love the process.
Love that, Christy. Definitely. We have to love everything about it, right? Because we get to do this. All right. What do you think? You good, Amanda? Got anything else to?
No, I feel much more empowered to handle some things that have felt intimidating in the past.
Yeah.
Go through and copy and pasting some of these and then changing some wording and just having them ready, like a few of the girls mentioned, so that you don't have to like think through it every time, but it's there and just kind of have them rehearsed in your mind so that it comes more naturally and doesn't cause you to instantly be kind of on the defense, but
yeah,
feel like you need to defend something, but just inviting more conversation and knowing more what's going on.
Agree. Good stuff. Well, thanks everybody for jumping on. Appreciate it. Always good to see your faces. And we'll see you next week. See ya.
Yeah.